Time now to see what's making headlines with Aaron Ogunkeye once again. Aaron, we are beginning with our top story here, this deal between Israel and Morocco.
Yes, that's right. Well, the North African nation is now the fourth Arab country to normalize relations with Israel in recent months after yet another deal brokered by the Trump administration just before leaving. So in exchange for these normalized relations, Israel and Morocco, of course, will recognize Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. So the first piece that I chose to talk about is from TSA here, an Algerian online website, and they call out the two-sidedness of Morocco's position. They say, on the one hand, yes, Morocco and Israel have long had kind of under-the-table secret commercial and political relations, but on the other, he says the Moroccan king is the chairman of the Al-Quds Committee, which was created in part to support the Palestinian cause. So he kind of ends the article by saying that nothing is irreversible, and he wonders how Moroccans who tend to support the Palestinian cause will react to this development. The online progressive Algerian website took a more kind of overtly critical stance with this cartoon here, where you see a Moroccan person saying the Moroccan king, saying the next step will be our normalization of relations with Kabylie, which is the Berber region of Algeria, of course, suggesting that this decision is likely to stoke regional tensions between Algeria and Morocco, of course.
And how has the Israeli press been covering it?
Well, at least the left-leaning Israeli paper Haaretz published a piece essentially saying that this deal is an occupation in exchange for another occupation. The paper criticizes the U.S.'s decision to abandon Western Sahara, saying that it's a decision that completely goes against international norms and international law. The piece says that the international community and Israelis probably don't care about self-determination for the residents of Western Sahara, but I quote, they say the most important thing to retain is that Israel, which is a young nation that was itself founded on the basis of international recognition of self-determination, is now again joining the movement of those wishing to subvert that right, the same right that Israel benefited from when it was created.
All right, let's move on now. A Time magazine in the United States has revealed its Person of the Year.
Yes, so we know it's a recognition of the person, or people in this case, who had the most influence on the year's events. Of course, this year they chose President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Now, I will say, Will, that I've already seen quite a bit of criticism, at least on social media, about this choice, which is to be expected. It is worth mentioning, however, as this Time article does, that they have a history of choosing president-elects as Person of the Year during election years. This is the first time that they have included the vice president-elect on the cover, but in terms of the president-elect, this is just the latest and the nearly 90-year-long tradition of choosing a president-elect as Person of the Year. It started with FDR, who you can see there, in 1932, so it shouldn't necessarily come as a surprise.
And now the magazine also recognized groups or individuals who defended the ideals of democracy.
That's right. They're what Time magazine calls guardians of the year. Among them this year, they recognized racial justice organizers like Portia Bennett Bay, who's known for her activism in Wisconsin after the Kenosha protests, and then, of course, Assa Traoré, who is a French Black Lives Matter activist whose brother was killed in police custody. They also included this year Dr. Anthony Fauci, the leading U.S. infectious disease expert, and frontline health workers, of course, for their tireless dedication to helping out and solving essentially this coronavirus pandemic. So true to the name of this magazine, Will, they're obviously choosing individuals that are important for the times. And this year, the most important events, I think, were obviously the pandemic and then the racial justice protests.
Yeah, indeed. No shortage of good choices there. Staying in the United States, the Trump administration going through with its first federal execution during this lame duck period.
Yes, Brandon Bernard was executed by lethal injection late Thursday night. He had been sentenced to the death penalty for his role in the 1999 killing of two youth ministers. Now, Bernard's co-conspirator shot the victims in the head while he burned the car that they were in. As this Washington Post piece points out, his condemnation to death drew a lot of criticism, not only from some high-profile celebrities, but more importantly from the jurors in his case who had originally voted to sentence him to death, who argue not only that his trial was flawed, but also that he was a model prisoner, that he was somebody who was a changed man, who expressed remorse about what happened, and they had therefore supported a life sentence instead of the death penalty.
As did the federal prosecutor on the case who defended the death sentence.
Exactly, and that didn't prevent the execution from moving forward. The Huffington Post reminds readers that the Trump administration, as you kind of suggested, broke with the 130-year precedent of not carrying out executions during the lame duck presidency.
Indeed. Let's wrap up now with an unorthodox treatment for depression that's been given the green light in clinical trials.
Yes, UK regulators are looking at treating depression patients with the so-called spirit molecule. Now, this is the name of the actual molecule is DMT. Why spirit molecule? Well, because it is a hallucinogenic compound that is also known for inducing powerful trips. It creates hallucinations, distortions of time, space, sound. It's also a main ingredient in ayahuasca, which is the South American kind of brew tea type drink that's taken in shaman rites. Now, the idea is that research has shown positive and, more importantly, long-lasting results in the mental health of volunteers that have taken it, not only for depression, but also anxiety, managing pain and in cancer patients. So the idea is that the use of this medicine will help, as the medical experts quoted in the piece say, unstigmatize treatments that might be super useful for a lot of different pathologies moving forward, similar to what we've seen with cannabis in recent years.
Indeed, and the photograph makes it look like just a pleasant breakfast.
Just tea.
Yeah, something that we might have here on the early morning shift where we're hallucinating from getting unruly hours ourselves. All right, thank you very much, Erin. Erin Ogunkeye with a look at what's making headlines. Time now for a quick break, then more news plus focus here on Live from Paris.